What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Lexi J Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Lexi Johnson, and this is my husband and co-host, Brett Johnson. This is actually the take 2. We recorded an episode last night on a different topic, and it wasn't our favorite. Didn't feel like we brought it. So we are doing it again, or just recording another episode again, an entirely different topic, just because we feel like we want to be able to bring our best to you guys, and we're continually pivoting and adjusting and improving, hopefully, from episode to episode. And that's the goal, at least. So, yeah, here we go. This week, we are talking about something we all love to hate, social media. We have a very love-hate relationship with social media, or at least I do.
I would agree.
But I say that I have experienced so much good from social media. I will say that. But so much of it plagues me and has brought a lot of negativity and anxiety about myself and my own accomplishments, my own achievements, and where I'm at in life and where my body is. So many of those things. Also, it brings a lot of anxiety. So if you're listening to this, I would like to kind of give a perspective of someone that has a decent following on social media. Like Instagram, I have over 100,000 followers, and I remember being stuck, quote unquote, at like 3,000 followers, and I just thought, like, man, if I had 10,000 followers, I would be so happy. If I had this many followers, I would be so happy, and I would probably get so many kind messages every single day, and I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. So if you're someone that's like just scraping and desperate to develop a following, hopefully I can kind of debunk a lot of the misconceptions about developing a following, and just understanding that there's a lot of value in having a quality following rather than a quantity following. And just, we can talk about like our experience starting out with social media. It's so interesting because we're like the generation that has grown up with social media. We're the first generation that has that, and yet it has evolved so much throughout our lifespan.
When did you get a Facebook profile?
So I was actually behind on Facebook. I think I got Instagram before I got Facebook.
So this is going to be interesting because I've mentioned this to you before and you didn't even know what it was. But it's like MySpace is a much more well-known social media platform because it was like MySpace before Facebook, right? And kind of right in there, whenever I think Facebook was like really new, I had Bebo. And yeah, still, you give me the same look whenever I say that. You think it's like a joke.
Yeah, I don't know what Bebo is.
So I had Bebo, and I think that was a pretty common thing for like young kids in our area, at least in my childhood. But Bebo was like a lot cooler for kids because you could customize everything. Like Facebook was very straight and narrow. There was no customization at that time. And Bebo, you could like change like the theme of your profile. You could put music videos on there. You could put like a banner picture. It was just much more personalized.
Like now.
Facebook now. Yeah, but Bebo was like way ahead of its time in its ability to be customized.
What happened to it?
I think they just got ran over by Facebook. I don't know if they did a poor job with money management or ads. I don't see. Whenever I was that little, that I didn't care about that side of it.
Yeah.
Now it would be much more interesting to like go back and dissect like why did it fail? So I don't think it got bought out. I think that I think it failed.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I didn't have Facebook for a really long time just because my parents didn't want me to have Facebook. And it's interesting because my parents aren't overly like helicoptery like it sounds. If someone didn't want you to have Facebook, that would sound like an overbearing parent. My parents, honestly, I am so glad that they didn't allow me to have Facebook throughout my adolescent years and throughout my orthodontic era. So I got Facebook after braces, which is such a blessing because there's not a picture of me unless I divulged it later, like just as a haha, look how embarrassing and pubescent I am here, wearing braces, which is such an awkward, uncomfortable era anyway. But
I can't say the same.
Yes. Brett was given the reins to Facebook early on. So you can...
They gave me the keys and said, drive, kid.
Yeah, you can dig up that gold mine later on. But yeah, they didn't want me to have Facebook just because I can't remember if there was just like a lot of instances of kids like bullying or getting in trouble or anything like that, just it kind of being nasty, which I think it's a lot more common now than it was then. So they were much more aware of it. But I got Instagram and Facebook probably around the same time. And it's so funny because we were talking about this earlier. Like, Instagram is so different now than it was. And stories weren't a thing when we first had Instagram. But the posting was a lot like stories. So Instagram posting used to be a lot more informal, where you would like take a picture of your meal, and then you would take a picture of yourself, you would take a picture of your best friends, you would take a picture of your next meal, and you would post all of those on the same day, static posts. Now, I post twice in a row, twice in the same day, and people are like, she is out of her mind. Like, how dare she double post? But that's just how it was. Like, people would post multiple times a day. And it was a lot more informal, like a story is now. Mm-hmm. And you said, when we were talking about it earlier, like now... when stories first came out, you were annoyed by them, but now you watch stories more than you do static posts.
Yeah. I mean, there's only like a select few people that I actually look at, story-wise, but yeah, before, like, I could give, I couldn't have cared less about the stories, but now it's like, it's definitely become a thing for me.
Yeah, and I like stories. Like, I like posting to my stories better than I do a static post. Because I feel like that's kind of a tighter knit community. Like, the people, because the algorithm favors in such an interesting way, I feel like the people that watch my stories are more invested in me as a person. Mm-hmm. And the people whose stories I watch, I am more invested in them, rather than just kind of like a randomly generated algorithm that's feeding you. So I like posting to my stories, and I like seeing other people post to their stories, just because I think that you get a better, less edited version.
Yeah. So what you were saying earlier about like people would post like pretty freely. I don't know how long it's been since that was, the way that people
I'm still
operated.
Rocking and rolling. I post like 3 times a day sometimes.
Well, now, but everything is so like meticulous, and everybody takes so much time, to make sure everything's perfect. It's all schemed out down to a T, and if it's not right, if it's not just right, you take it down and repost it. Or if it didn't go up at the right time, you didn't get the amount of likes or shares or whatever. Everything is just scrutinized so heavily. I think that it's just extremely taxing mentally for most people and they don't realize it. A lot of people don't realize how much weight they put on themselves on a social media post that will likely be forgotten by the viewer in less than a few minutes.
Yeah, and I think that it's kind of due to 2 things. One, because so many people operate their businesses out of social media. I am one. And then also, you have the introduction of influencers and highly edited things. So when you're getting fed that by the algorithm and you're seeing these curated versions of other people's lives, it kind of puts a mirror up to your own, and then it makes you hyperfixate on the inadequacies in your life, or at least the expected, because watching someone else live this like fantasy life where they don't look like they have any flaws, and they wake up and birds are chirping, and they have a perfect exercise routine, and they're just like not a flaw to be seen, then it makes you want to present that also, because then that becomes the expectation that that's normal. And you're seeing in real time that person get a lot of likes and views and comments, and you're kind of like subconsciously being fed that's what is more valued. And this actually, as I'm saying this in real time, there's a book called The Chaos Machine, and I read it a few months ago, and it is all about social media and how the algorithms are manipulated to manipulate you, really, and to make you believe all of these things, as far as like making the extreme versions of life seem a lot more day to day than they are, and seem like you need to curate your life to look that way. And it just weighs so heavily in our minds. And I, for sure, like, I've fallen into that trap before, but it only takes so long before it's exhausting to pretend to be someone you're not. And then I think that kind of we've circled back to the point where, because everything is so highly edited and there's all of these highlight reels shown, it's kind of fun to be the outlier and not edit stuff and to not post.
Be authentic.
Yeah. And
Yep.
I also, like, this happens with boys also, but as a woman, and I'm aware that I have so many younger girls watching me, that being someone that was the viewer on all of those perfectly edited photos and videos when social media was really gaining traction, and seeing them rewarded for all of that, like, in my brain, that looks like what I should be doing. That looks like, if I'm not that person, or if I don't look like that woman or that girl, then I'm not as good, or I'm not as pretty, or I'm not as creative, or as valued to society, because that's what the algorithm is showing. So I think that even if you don't have a quote unquote like large platform, and I have a relatively large platform, but in comparison to people that have millions, mine's still really small. But when you have people that are looking at you, and I think that you have an obligation to show up and be authentic, and to show up and show them what real life is.
Yeah. So we kind of jumped into like the psychological aspect of it, and the weight that we put on social media, and where it's trended toward is basically this this showcase of all the perfect things in your life. But just rewinding a little bit, like, social media was originally not that way. Like, social media was intended to be person to person. Like, it was individual to individual interaction. It wasn't me showing off my life, you showing off your life. That's not what it was about. It wasn't about business. Like, businesses weren't using it as a tool. And, frankly, that's like the name of the game at this point. Like, all businesses are taking advantage of social media because it's free advertising. So with all that being said, like, I remember whenever I first got on Facebook, that, like, my sister would catch up with me. Like, she would post on my wall. That was, people probably don't even really think about, like, my wall, these days. It's just like, you get on Facebook to look at a timeline. Like, but back in, the early days of Facebook, you posted on somebody's wall, like, individually, like, to send them a message. And it was like, it was public, but it was personal. It was an interesting dynamic, but that was like, the early days of Facebook. And I look back on that fondly now, because it's just like, wow, it's not like that anymore. But now, I mean, nobody posts on your individual timeline unless it's like your birthday and they say happy birthday. When else do you post directly on someone's timeline?
Yeah, never.
So it's just interesting for me to think back on what its original intention was, like, to connect people. And now it's become this enormous world where it's no longer a tool for people to use. It's now a way to use people. And I've said this before, and I'll say it as many times as it takes for people to really get it to sink in. But Facebook is free. Instagram is free. Twitter's free. All this stuff, all this social media, it's free. So it's because it's free.
If you're not paying for the product, you are
Exactly.
the product.
Exactly. Couldn't let me get there?
It felt like you were scrambling for the words.
No. I was going to get a punchline in there. But that is the point. So if you're getting something for free, then you are the product. The product isn't free to you. So it's using you in some way. Now, whether or not you realize it, you may be naive to it, but you get influenced in one way or another, whether it may not be directly from an influencer, but you're going to get influenced by a media outlet. You're going to get influenced by a business. You're going to get influenced in some way, shape, or form, and you become the tool. And it starts to shape you via the algorithm, because it starts to learn you better than you know yourself. And it's become this very scary thing. And I'm sure that in that book you read, The Chaos Machine, that or The Social Dilemma, whatever you you really start digging into social media with, there's all sorts of stuff out there at this point. It's no mystery. It's just people choose to avoid thinking about it, or choose to avoid, the topic of discussion because they know it's bad for them, but they do it anyway. But again, I mean, there's positives to social media for sure. Like,
there's so many, and I want to get into that also.
Right. I mean, I don't want to totally spin this in a negative direction, but people have to be aware, of what it can be there for. And if you're in a negative mindset, and maybe you need to get, away from the certain follower, not the following, but who you're following. Maybe you need to reshape what the algorithm is feeding you by what you look at, because it continues to feed you what you like to look at and what you choose to look at.
Well, and I'm just a big advocate of that in general. Just kind of doing a purge of your following, or who you're following, because you don't know anyone to follow. Aside from like maybe your significant other, maybe. But if they don't post good content, you can kick them to the curb. But if the people that you're following are not bringing value, they're not, and when I say bringing value, it doesn't have to be all educational, but like if you don't see their things and it makes you think, or it entertains you in some way, or it's your friend that you're glad to catch up with. But if people are putting things into your timeline and then in essence putting it into your brain, and you're consuming this content that makes you feel bad, or it spirals negativity, then you don't owe them shit. Unfollow them. Do a purge. Like, you do not have to apologize. You don't have to write a breakup letter. Click the unfollow button.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Yeah, but it becomes very personal, because it's like, oh, so-and-so unfollowed me. And how people figure that, I don't know. Like, I think, are girls worse about that than boys for sure? Because
You're talking to the wrong girl.
Because, like, granted, I'm around more girls than I am guys, because I'm around, like, your employees and stuff, and, like, I feel like girls are more perceptive of, like, their followers, and somehow, how do you find out if somebody, like, one individual unfollowed you? Like, if you see your number shift, and it's, like, 1 out of 1,000, or 1 out of 3,000, it's like, how on God's green earth did you figure out that Joe Blow unfollowed you, that one individual? But people start, they do investigating, and it gets so personal.
Personally, if you have enough time to investigate to find out who unfollowed you, we should reallocate that time and that energy elsewhere.
Yeah, your priorities need to shift.
Yes.
And that's the point of what I'm saying. But that sort of mindset, it's unhealthy. If that's really at the at the top of your mind, trying to figure out who unfollowed you.
And speaking generally, if someone unfollows you, that is them saying that they don't want to see your content. That's them saying that they don't want you in their life. So why would you want someone that doesn't want you to be in their life in your life?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how happy are you going to be with someone that you have to convince to like you?
Yeah.
Silly.
That's fair.
Yeah, just silly.
What would you say the most positive social media platform is, and what is the most negative social media platform?
Ooh. So, I have a bit of a skewed vision on this, because I happen to run the unicorn of the internet. So, the Lexi J Wellness Facebook page is pretty damn positive, not going to lie. If you need a smile or pick me up.
It's extremely positive.
It is the little corner of the internet that is actually genuinely positive to its core. Okay, so the platform-wise,
like as an entire platform.
can I pick Pinterest? I feel like Pinterest is the most positive.
I don't think that counts.
Okay. Okay, well, if I was allowed, I would say Pinterest is the most positive.
Let's just narrow it down here. I'll narrow it down. And we're not going to include LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is not...
I've never had a LinkedIn.
I had to make one in college for a class. So we've got Facebook. We're going to say Facebook and Instagram. They're obviously both owned by Meta, but Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Let's just do those three, because
Not YouTube or TikTok?
I don't really consider YouTube like a social media platform.
It very much
I mean, it is, but it isn't. Like, it's not a person to person. Like, you don't...
Okay. It's not, because you don't use it that way.
That's true. All right. my perception is different. So okay, let's introduce YouTube. And what was the other one?
TikTok.
Oh, duh. Yeah. See, that's the thing is I don't use TikTok, so I forget about that one.
Grandpa,
But
you were talking about LinkedIn. You're not using. You're not talking about the most popular social media platform on earth is TikTok.
yeah, that's pretty bad. Okay, so
Go back to your bebop, whatever you're talking about.
It's Bebo, Grandpa. Okay, so rewind. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube.
Okay.
Just pick most positive, most negative.
Well, I'm inexplicably banned from Twitter. I have no idea because I made.
You're banned?
I'm suspended or whatever. My account got deleted. And I have no idea why, because I had one tweet. I recently made this account at the beginning of 2023 with my business email.
Did I know this?
I don't know. But I made a new account because I hadn't used it like since high school. And I'm like, oh, I don't want my old high school tweets. I want like a Lexi J Wellness account. So I made a Lexi J Wellness account with my business email. On January 1st, the only thing I tweeted was like day 1 of 365. We can still win them all, or something like that. Like I tweeted the
Banned.
same. I tweeted the exact same thing.
Too positive.
I tweeted the exact same thing that I posted on my Instagram story, and then like forgot about Twitter. Weeks later, I'm like, "Ooh, I got a tweet," and I opened up the thing, and it was like, "Your account has been suspended." I'm like, "What the hell?" So, I feel like that one, because anyone that spins and feeds more onto your timeline than you directly follow. So I'm talking TikTok and Twitter specifically, those are inherently are more negative. I think I've experienced a lot of negativity in TikTok comments. That's the thing. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Because TikTok will feed, and that's the whole reason you post, because you want one to go viral. But then when it does go viral, man, those comments are mean. However, TikTok doesn't let people message you that you don't follow. So that's super nice. So I still think TikTok is the most negative from a comment standpoint, because it has the opportunity to be seen by so many.
Yeah.
Instagram can be really negative because anyone can message you. And that's where you'll get mean messages.
Like direct messages, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess I was just thinking comments, because just secondhand exposure to TikTok. Like I have a TikTok, but I get on there like never. Usually if I get on there, it's just to like look at your stuff and go through it. But I've always said, you've heard me say it a million times, that TikTok is a breeding ground for negativity. Like I swear, no matter where you go, if you click on some TikTok post, click on the comments, if you scroll at least a little bit, it may even be the top one. Like it's immediately going to be somebody trying to get the most likes possible with an extremely insulting comment. And that part of TikTok just absolutely makes me irate. Like that's why I don't get on there at all, because it's a breeding ground for negativity. It just puts me in a bad headspace. So I understand that there's also a lot of positive that can come from it, especially from a business perspective, because the algorithm is so much different than Instagram, because it is totally erratic. There's just no, like, it's spontaneous. You can get to a whole different demographic than what you normally would get exposed to on any other social media platform, which is what makes it so unique.
Yeah, the best way I can describe TikTok from using it as a business is like Russian roulette.
Yeah,
because
it's a good way to put it.
You can like hit the jackpot and get a whole bunch of new clients and things, and that's obviously the dream from TikTok. But also, if anything blows up, and I have this fear of like, I'm scared sometimes to post pictures or videos of me lifting on TikTok, because you know what happens if you post anything lifting and it
gets critiqued immediately.
Even the slightest bit of your squat was not deep enough. Your squat was too deep. Your feet were too narrow.
Your hips came up before.
Up before your whatever. It is horrible. And people also have, like in the fitness community, people love to like tag fitness authorities on TikTok and be like, will you critique her? Will you check to make sure? I'm like, did I tag that person and ask for their feedback on the video? So it like makes you hesitant. It makes you self-conscious to post anything.
Because even if there is no justification for getting critiqued, then somebody will make something up. You just, basically just fabricate something to try to get under your skin, or to really just try to lift themselves up. That's one of the most infuriating things. Is like, it's like the egg profile picture.
Oh, I was literally going to say that. Without a doubt,
anybody with an egg profile picture, it's just,
yeah, the majority of the trolls, the people that are commenting, that are just being mean for no reason, just nasty. They never have a profile picture themselves. They never post any content themselves, and they never have a name on their platforms. And it's because they feel so small and insecure about themselves that they will never put themselves in that position. However, from an anonymous profile, they have a lot of boldness. They're very brave.
Oh, very.
And that's the thing you have to remember. And I
just imagine what kind of life they have if that's what, gets their rocks off, is to get on social media and anonymously just try to drag somebody down.
Oh, it's so sad to think about. Like, what a sad existence that has to be, where that's the highlight of their day.
It's very hard to think about that in the moment, because if you're the one receiving that, you immediately, you want to get upset about it. I mean,
Brett has policed me.
I secondhand get upset from some of the stuff that people have posted and still post on a variety of your things.
That's the thing that makes me most upset, because you still want to appear as a professional, and you still want to have grace, and
you have to be the bigger person.
Yeah, but
because
that is so easy to say from as the person that isn't getting attacked.
But you have to know that if they get a reaction out of you, then they got what they wanted.
Oh, I absolutely know that, and I can say that right now because I'm not in the moment of getting that troll or those hate comments or hate messages. But man, when you're getting those,
that's what they want.
Oh, I know it's what they want. But it just human instincts, when someone's attacking you and you're not allowed to defend yourself, that's basically tying my hands and being like, hey, why don't you punch me again?
Yeah.
That sucks.
No, it's not easy by any means, but you have to understand where you have to understand where it's coming from.
It sucks.
It makes them look even more small if you just leave it be, or you be the bigger person, and everybody else sees that, and it takes away their power.
Oh, I know.
But again, it's a lot easier to say not in the moment, because it is very taxing.
If you are hesitant to put yourself out there for these reasons, though, I can say without absolute certainty that I've never received a trolling comment from someone that appears to be doing better than me or working harder than me. So know that those people are coming from a place of insecurity, and they're coming from a place where they are so scared to try anything because they know people like them exist. And don't give them the satisfaction of never trying and never putting yourself out there and never being willing to fall on your face and get back up and be gritty enough to start again in order to succeed, because that's what they want. Because if they scare you off enough to never try, then they've won. But it's worthwhile. Because let's talk about the positives of social media. We've talked about the trolls, we've talked about the negatives, but there are so many positives, and I have been able to virtually meet and then in person meet as a byproduct so many incredible individuals.
Where would Lexi J Wellness be without social media?
It wouldn't exist.
Exactly.
It truly wouldn't. I started posting my workouts on my story, and I was terrified. And I posted them on my story for a reason, because I knew that they would get taken down in 24 hours because of that exact reason. Because I was scared of what someone would possibly say. I was scared that someone would send my post to their friends and they would laugh at me. I was scared that someone from my high school would send it back to someone else to my high school, and they'd be like, look what she's doing now. And oddly enough, I actually watched a TikTok today. I think I reposted it. A TikTok today, and it said, everyone is terrified of being that cringy individual that just is like their authentic self on social media, because you know for a fact that there are people judging you and that you're like the topic of conversation in a high school group chat somewhere. But you know who's the most happy and the most successful in their life are the people that are living uncompromisingly authentic. And who cares if you're the subject of a group chat? That means you are the most exciting thing that they have going on in their life.
So true.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
And that's why I was scared to post, because I mean,
it's kind of it's a liberating feeling to think about you doing exactly what you want to do, despite, the haters talking about you. Like it's kind of it just takes the weight off your shoulders whenever you're just 100% okay with that, and you almost feel bad for them for spending so much time worrying about what you're doing and not actually enjoying their lives. Because it is a sad existence to constantly be scrutinizing and analyzing what somebody else is doing whenever you could be enjoying yourself, but you'd rather be talking to somebody else and trying to tear somebody down behind their backs. I mean, it's pretty sad.
No, it's pathetic. And the people that get talked about in that way are the outliers. They're the ones that go against the grain. They're the ones that swim upstream and do something a little bit different than the rest of the pack. But do you also know who makes headlines, who makes history? It's the outliers. It's not the people that fall in line and are a cog in the wheel. If you want to
100%
to make anything and to create a mark, you're going to have to be willing to take those hits sometimes, because your impact is going to far outweigh that. It's going to far exceed any sort of judgment you're going to receive. And you kind of have to make that decision of, do you want to be in the pack and be unnoticed, or do you want to go noticed?
If you want to be in the 1%, then you're going to have to be different than the other 99%.
Yeah,
it's pretty self-explanatory.
1% doesn't even mean like financial success or business success. If you want to be like in the 1% of people that are authentically themselves, like maybe you're scared to post a makeup tutorial, but that's something that you really enjoy doing. Who cares if someone makes fun of you, if someone laughs at you? Because I bet that person is so jealous of the confidence that you have to do that, and just the joy that you find in something that makes you happy. I bet they're jealous of that. I bet they're jealous that they don't have the self-esteem to share that with other people.
100%.
And that makes me sad. But going back to your point, Lexi J Wellness would be nothing without social media. That's where, like I said, I had started posting my stories, and I took them down after a couple hours because, again, I posted them for people to see, but I was also simultaneously terrified of the thought of someone seeing them. And I would scrutinize every single picture and video I took. The first time I talked on my story, I probably took that video 45 times, and then I deleted it within 20 minutes, I'm sure, because I'm looking at that video, and I was definitely the one that watched my story more than anyone else. And I'm like, I can't believe my mouth moves that way. I can't believe my voice sounds that way. And you pick every single piece of you apart. But like, it's going to go down in 24 hours. And it's probably not going to be thought about in 5 minutes by whoever's watching it. So I have a little bit better perspective of it now. And there's still some things that I like over analyze when it comes to posting, but I do think that the best way to approach social media in a world where it's constantly looking to kind of mold you into a version of everything else that's seen is to be very authentic and be vulnerable. I had a really bad day today, and I went live in my Facebook group. It's the unicorn of the internet. I swear there's not a more positive place. There's no more positive people than the Lexi J Wellness crew. And I went live in the group, and I was just kind of talking about my day, and I like broke down. I started crying, and I hate crying in front of people, virtually or physically. And I was crying, and I just kept talking to them, and I was like, you know what? If you're having a day like this, I think that this, like, I'm glad that I showed up here. I'm proud of myself for doing this, because I know that I'm not the only one that feels this way. So if seeing me this way offers you any sort of odd comfort that you're not the only one that feels this, then it has been worth it. And sometimes it takes putting yourself out there and being really uncomfortable and vulnerable. And that's what makes the connections, because very few people are inspired or changed by a picture perfect life. it's not memorable because it's cookie cutter like Pinterest. But if you show up and you're exactly who you are and you show the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it, people respect that and they see that.
100%. Sorry I had to stop you from grabbing the mic. Boom. I feel like it's going to make a hell of a racket. That was all really good, though.
Thank you.
Sorry. OCD got to me.
Yeah. Do you have anything to comment? Did you hear anything I said?
I did. I think getting vulnerable in the group is a great thing. And I think that it's super hard for people to get on the internet and feel like they can be themselves and they feel like they're understood and they don't feel like they're being judged. And I think that that's one of the most unique things about the culture that's been developed with Lexi J Wellness, in that you don't have to get on there and second guess what you're going to say or second guess, yourself, because there's so many other women that are just looking to support you, not tear you down. And that's the most infuriating part to me about social media in general, is people just ready to jump at your throat immediately. And there are nooks and crannies of the internet, social media, where it's not like that. And I think finding those places is just, it's a diamond in the rough. It's extremely unique. And once you find it, just hold on to it because it's a great thing.
Yeah. I truly don't follow a lot of influencers. I follow probably less than 5 influencers total. I follow a lot of just regular everyday people, and most of them are like in my LJW network, because those are the people that inspire me every day, because they are juggling a million things. And recently, I think it was on Easter, I was so far behind on my steps, and I was very close to starting my streak over the next day and just calling it quits for the day. But I got tagged in a bunch of stories of people doing my GYAO hashtag, get your ass outside, and they were getting their steps in. And it was not the people with the blue check marks next to their name. It wasn't the people that had 1 million followers. It wasn't the people that are endorsed by 1 million companies. It's everyday people like you and me that are just showing up, and they're leading the way. And that's inspiring. So I guarantee if you're listening to this, at some point you have hesitated or stopped yourself from posting something, whether it's on your story or your static post, whether it's physical progress or just something that you're excited about. Enthusiasm is contagious, and someone that's in a very similar situation as you is watching you show up, and it's inspiring them to do the same. Because when you do it and you know the way, you show the way, then it's empowering them to see that it's possible. Recently, we had someone that had joined us in the app, and they had sent a message, and they said, the past 5 years have been really, really hard, to the point where I have been divorced. I have put on a lot of weight. I have broken a lot of relationships with close friends and family. And I've come to the conclusion that I either need to change or I need to die. And that was what the message said. And that is like, still, it's so like gut wrenching to hear. And when we read that, it was like, it's something that stops you in your tracks. It kind of pauses your work day. And
wow.
Yeah. And the rest of that message said, but I saw so-and-so show up, and I remember that they were in a similar position to me. And that's why I'm here. So I'm hoping you guys can help. And that person that they referenced probably has no idea that they inspired that person, but it was them showing up. It was them posting on their story or posting a progress photo or just talking about a good interaction that they had because of the decision that they made that day. And they unknowingly probably changed the trajectory of that person's life. And it's little things like that you don't always get to see the fruits of your labor and the ripples down the way, but your interactions matter, and your actions, how you show up, how you speak, those things ripple. It's the domino effect in motion. And It starts, social media gives you such a platform to do so. So whether you have 100 followers or 100 million followers, you're making an impact.
All it takes is one person.
Mm-hmm. And one person doesn't just stop at one person, because if you influence one mom, you're going to influence her kids also. You're going to influence the coworkers that she's around. You're going to influence her students. You're going to influence everyone that she interacts with. So it seems really insignificant, but I am a big fan of just like manageable goals. And maybe you want to make a large impact, start with the person right in front of you. And that's kind of how our team has approached it. That's what we talk about a lot, is just focus on changing the person in front of you and helping the person directly in front of you. One, because it's much more manageable for you, but also it makes that ripple effect even deeper, because caring for the person there it doesn't stop with them. But I think that social media is a gift to enable that sort of change, and it starts by being vulnerable and showing up authentically.
Yep. So there you go. There is still a lot of positivity that can come from social media. You just have to look for it in the right places.
Yeah. And it's those little things like that make it worthwhile to continue showing up, because there have been so many times when I have wanted to throw my phone out the window, and like a social media purge sounds so nice. But then I get messages like that and I'm like, oh my gosh, if it's me being goofy on my story, or me saying this workout was the last thing I wanted to do, but here I am, or just anything that I share, if that impacted someone else, then that's worthwhile to keep going.
Definitely.
Because I think I have an obligation. I truly, as cheesy as it may sound, I feel like that's my mission on this earth, is to make an impact, to make the largest, most positive domino effect possible. And I think that although it has its drawbacks, sometimes social media gives me a really good launch pad for that. So I'm going to use it to the best of my abilities. And in the meantime,
block out all the trolls.
Yeah, we'll do my best. Although it really, there's times, I'm telling you, the LJW Facebook group is the unicorn of the internet. There are some times I want to post a screenshot of some meanies in my DMs and be like, girls, go get them.
Sick them.
Sick them, girls, because they would not hold back. Do you have anyone on social media that you follow that really brings you a lot of value?
So I just started following Cody Sanchez. I've really enjoyed her content here recently. She was on Andy Frisella's podcast recently, and I like following like more business related accounts, and I think Cody puts a very interesting spin on a lot of her content. And she also, it's very real, and like she doesn't try to do anything like super fancy smancy. She tells you, basically like the most boring businesses that are super effective at providing you passive income, or even, partially, active income. So I get a lot of value out of her content, because I myself have tried to gear towards not necessarily sexy forms of income generation, but I've geared towards stuff that's very tried and true, and stuff that doesn't necessarily make you want to jump on social media and watch it all day, but
like blue collar type work is what she talks about a lot.
Right. Buying businesses that, like a laundromat, buying a vending machine business, buying a plumbing business, in a way she's big in people getting skin in the game. Yeah. And buying their own business.
You can kind of extrapolate that just from like what we were talking about from a person to person standpoint, and me saying being authentic and like not editing your photos or not using filters and things like that. It's kind of an outlier, because that's so rare, where she's kind of that way when it comes to business, where people want to talk about like the next big thing and reinventing the wheel, or coming up with something very technologically advanced or earth-shattering. But she's back to the basics, because
the basics are the basics for a reason.
That's right. So Cody Sanchez, I'll have to follow her. I enjoy Damon West's content a lot, also because I love a kind of an underdog story, and
Damon's awesome.
Yeah, and he spent, 8 years in prison, and now he completely changed his life, and he's creating a domino effect. And his thing is the coffee bean effect, or be a coffee bean, basically. Well, I'll let you guys go check out his content and seeing what that means. But he's very inspiring, and I also just like the vulnerability of a lot of his message, because he comes from a place where he humbled himself. He was in prison for 8 years, so obviously that's part of his story, and I think that's really inspiring.
Yeah, Damon's a stud. He his life is an incredible story.
I'm trying to think of any others, just outside of like fitness, because I have a few fitness related that I enjoy, but just that bring positivity to my life that I enjoy watching.
Yeah, there's a number of accounts that I am sure that I am just overlooking right now. It's hard to rattle them off whenever I guess it just becomes.
Two of my favorites, and well, I'll say three of my favorites, and these are three of my friends. They're heavily involved with the fitness community and fitness space, but they also bring so much value from just life, and they have three different lifestyles. But that's Erica Phillips is one of my very favorites. She has 2 daughters. She's extremely hardworking. And she also, if you're a mom, I think that she would be an excellent follow, because she has a girl. I don't know how old Sterling is. I would guess like 8 years old, but she shows her and talks about tactics that she uses to develop grit and develop just a lot of life skills that I think are really cool. And Erica, I talked to her about this a little bit, but she inspires me, and it's like I'm taking future notes if and when I ever have kids, because I like the way that she parents and the way that she displays hard work and leads by example. I think that that's really inspiring. Another one is Taylor Frazier. She's a friend of mine, and her husband remind me a lot of you and I, her and Jeff, and they have like a YouTube channel together also. And I think that they similar to you and I, sort of, maybe that's why I'm drawn to it. They live a very routine and structured kind of quote unquote boring life. Like her and I have had this conversation where her ideal getaway is like a cabin in the woods where it's just her, Jeff, and the dogs hanging out. Like it's not an expensive trip or anything like that. She enjoys that quality time and that solitude, but she looks to add value and she looks to help people, and she's just a contributor. And I really enjoy her. And then the other one is Hannah Jones. Hannah is an extremely hard worker. She has a baby girl. Her husband was in the military, so and has a crazy life story in himself, like in his own right. And she's overcome so much also. So those are 3 people that I really enjoy following and that bring a lot of value to me in my life. So if you haven't followed them, that's Erica Phillips, Taylor Frazier, and Hannah Jones.
Yeah, I think I follow
women.
all 3 of them. I enjoy following all of them.
Yeah, they're great. Well, speaking of social media, if you enjoy this podcast, we would love for you to share it and tag us. If you have any requests or topics that you'd like to hear us talk about, questions, Q&As, you can email those to
pod@lexijwellness.com.
pod@lexijwellness.com. You can also message us on Instagram, but we're looking forward to hearing your thoughts, what your takeaways are, or what you love or hate about social media, because I think that
I'm interested to hear what other people's opinions are on the most positive and the most negative social media platforms, because everybody, I think, has their own take on it based on their own individual interactions. And, I'm sure my opinion is going to differ from yours, and vice versa. So it's just interesting to see what other people's perceptions are of social media platforms.
Yeah. That book that I had recommended earlier, it's called The Chaos Machine. If my memory serves me correct, I think the author is Max Fisher. But until then, we'll talk to you guys next week.